So excretion is really all about this, the idea that your body needs energy, every single cell in your body needs energy, and in the process of producing energy, as we know just even from the energy use that we use for powering our house or powering our car, to produce energy you need to produce waste. And so if your cells are producing waste, then we need to find a way to get those wastes out of the body. Nobody is 100% efficient. No cells are 100% efficient. No energy source is 100% efficient. So excretion is the process of getting rid of metabolic waste. Your body is about 60% water, and 2/3 of that water is in your cells, while the other third is outside of the cells, and is in the fluid around it. What is the system that's responsible for balancing that fluid around the cells? Lymphatic system, yeah. So the lymphatic system is the one that takes care of that extra fluid. So, and then what about the the other 2/3 is in your cells. I guess the circulatory system takes care of some third of that, some part of that third as well. The intercellular fluid affects the life of cells. If it's too salty, then the cells will lose water. If it's too watery, the cells are going to bloat. What's that process called, where cells bloat or shrink based on saltiness? Osmosis, usually, right? So diffusion is slower than osmosis. Osmosis is movement of water. So most of this is going to be controlled by osmosis. Some diffusion, though, of course, because diffusion is usually the other stuff. If it's too acidic or basic, then your enzymes change. If urea and other wastes accumulate, then the cells can even be poisoned. So some of those chemicals can cause a damage to the cells. So there are a couple of organs involved in excretion. So this excretion, this removal of waste, and the regulation of salt and water balance is part of excretion, and that means that we're talking about another balancing act or another homeostasis. So this is the homeostasis of water and salt balance, as well as wastes. Your blood carries the carbon dioxide as well as the excess salts, urea, and water, and then that will carry them to the excretory organs. Many of your wastes then become recycled, so that the amount of waste that you're actually putting out is smaller than the amount of work that's being done. So a lot of your waste is recycled into parts that can be used again. And then the organs that are going to be involved here are going to be your lungs, your skin, your liver, and the transport system. But the main organ here is going to be our kidneys, because the kidneys is where the excretions mostly leave the body. On the right here, we can see a picture of our kidneys. This is your kidneys here, these kidney bean-shaped things. And then below here, this is your bladder. And we will have many opportunity to look at them. Most people have 2 kidneys, although a kidney transplant or a loss of a kidney can occur depending on situations. Some people who suffer from a kidney cancer or something like that, they'll have a kidney removed. You can also have a spare kidney thrown in there if your kidneys are malfunctioning. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we just mentioned the lungs. So the lungs are the ones that are responsible for getting rid of one of the byproducts of energy use, and that is the byproduct of cellular respiration, which is CO2. So too much CO2 could build up and become toxic. It can displace oxygen on your red blood cells. It also changes the pH of your blood. which changes the function of the proteins and cells around throughout your body. So we need to get that CO2 out, and your lungs are responsible for that. So by breathing out, your lungs are removing a waste product. They're removing the CO2. Lungs can also eliminate alcohol, which is partially why the breathalyzer test works. So the breathalyzer test is a test for alcohol on the breath, and that's because that alcohol is actually coming out through your lungs. The blood that's traveling through the body is carrying the alcohol with it, and some of that alcohol is reaching the lungs and getting breathed out. As sugars are burned, or as they're metabolized, is another word there, the byproducts are CO2 and water. However, our body really does need water, so a lot of that water gets reused, but the CO2 needs to be removed. So burned, let's use the word metabolize. In cellular respiration. Some water is lost through the lungs as a vapor, so your moist breath, if your breath is moist, that does mean that it has water in it, and that water is actually coming from the body. Some of it is the same water that was produced through metabolism. We also lose water off of our skin, and also as a solvent that we use for the waste that leave our body through our urine. So the kidneys are going to be moving a lot of waste into the bladder, and to move those wastes, they're going to use water to move them. Water moves everything, makes everything move around the body. So we can see here from this little table that we take in about 1,200 milliliters of water through what we drink in a day. We take in about a liter of water just through our food, the wetness of our food. And then we produce an additional 300 through oxidation or metabolism. That's another example of metabolism. This is also metabolism. Or cellular respiration. That produces 300 milliliters of water on average. So that gives you, every day you're putting 2,500 milliliters of water in your body, and then through excretion by urine, you're going to be taking 1,500 milliliters of water out of your body. There's a little bit of water left in your feces. We talked about reabsorption in the large intestine in our previous to the previous unit. Our skin, by drying out, our skin loses 550 milliliters. So that's actually more water is lost through your skin, through your sweat, than is lost through your feces. And then your lungs are losing about 300 milliliters just by breathing. So if you do a lot of mouth breathing, breathing through your mouth, you're going to lose even a little bit more, because the mouth loses, the moisture can be caught if it's going through your nose, but you will dry yourself out by breathing only through your mouth. And these there's a little bit of balancing act here, right? Depending on what you're drinking. If you're drinking something that's known as a diuretic, like a coffee or a Coke, then you'll actually be increasing the amount of urine that comes out, because your body will be pushed to go out. If you live in a very cold environment or a very dry environment, then your skin might lose more moisture. if you live in the tropics, and your skin will lose less moisture, because the surroundings will be won't be as dry, and there won't be as much evaporation happening. These the hot, moist summers that we have, where it feels like you can't even sweat. It's so hot out, and your body's overheating. Then that's part of it, is that your skin is not able to lose as much water. Okay, so your skin, the excretions through your skin, salts, some urea, and water are excreted through your skin. You have 2 million sweat glands, and the sweat is made of water, salts, and some urea. So that's why you might notice some people describe sweat as salty. Sometimes you're working out and you feel the sweat hit your mouth. So it's salty because your body is actually excreting salts through your skin. Perspiration is actually odorless. Sweat actually has no smell, but moisture on your skin means that bacteria can grow, and those bacteria will produce byproducts that smell. So most of the odor that we're getting from perspiration is actually because it's the bacteria on the skin that are decomposing the urea to make new stinky compounds. This is why regular showers can reduce some of that smell. Skin also is the main way that we lose excess heat. Your lungs help a little bit, but our skin is one of the ways that we reduce heat on the body. Your vascular system can become dilated to bring more blood to the surface of the skin, and then the skin can lose heat by evaporating the sweat on the outside of the skin. So as your skin sweats, the fluid that covers you, the sweat that covers you, it will evaporate. The evaporation of sweat actually consumes energy. And so that energy is coming from the body, which reduces the amount of heat on the body. Anything new and exciting there?
That's why you're not supposed to wear antiperspirant, because it actually traps the sweat inside.
Right.
And then over time that becomes really toxic.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, so an antiperspirant is actually trying to plug that space, right? It's usually some sort of like waxy material, and that wax will actually stop the flow of liquid across the skin, or flow of liquid out of the skin, and those trapped sweat could harvest bacteria, could grow there. If you were a pimply teenager like I was, then you know that sweat trapped is never a good thing. That's where pimples arrive, is that they get trapped. It's often sweat that's trapped in the pores, and that causes a point of moisture. And so often with a hair follicle or a sweat pore, you can get bacteria trapped in here, and then that bacteria will get involved in a fight with your immune system, which will cause the area to become red and inflamed, and pus will build up, and then that pus builds up usually below the skin level, and the level will actually rise up, and that's where we have a pimple. And what you're doing by expressing the pimple, you're sort of pinching the skin there, and you're trying to push this packet of pus, of white blood cells fighting bacteria just below the skin surface. You're trying to push those through that very narrow little pore, sometimes doing damage. Lots of animals have adaptations that allow them to cool their bodies faster. So the elephant, a very, very large animal who has lots of blood on the inside, but not necessarily a lot of surface area, has these large elephant ears. And inside the elephant ears, there are lots and lots of blood vessels. And so these blood vessels carry the blood to the ears, and then by flapping the ears, they're able to cool to cool the blood down by losing heat to the air around them. The elephant doesn't necessarily have to sweat as much there, but it is one of the ways that they can cool down. Rabbits have the same system. If you look at a desert hare versus an Arctic hare, you'll notice that a desert hare has very, very long, wide, big, giant ears. Little Arctic hares have little tiny ears, and the smaller ears because an Arctic hare doesn't want to lose heat, and they still want to be able to hear, but they don't want to lose heat. Versus a desert hare having very large, sort of desert hares kind of have like these sort of cartoon ears almost, and there's lots of blood vessels in there where they can lose heat through their skin, and where the blood vessels in the skin are. Okay. So your digestive system, of course, is also very important for excretion. It takes away a lot of toxic materials as well. One of the toxic materials that gets taken away is the leftovers from your red blood cells. So your liver breaks down red blood cells. I believe this image has been seen at least once before. This is the breakdown of your red blood cells with the Kupffer cells. Kupffer cells. So your old red blood cells eventually are deemed too old and are sent over to undergo phagocytosis with the Kupffer cells in your liver. And during this process, the heme, the piece of iron that comes from your red blood cell as part of your hemoglobin, that is broken down into iron or bilirubin, and the bilirubin is then released into your bile, and your bile connects. Your bile is secreted into. Where does bile get secreted into? Into the not the pancreas. It goes in the gallbladder, and then the gallbladder goes into the small intestine. Yeah, very good. So yeah, it's all back there. We're ready for the 18th, no problem. So yeah, so here we have an example where we're connecting back. So we break down the red blood cell into the iron that can be recycled to make more red blood cells, but also some bilirubin, and the bilirubin is excreted into the gallbladder, and then from the gallbladder it's secreted into the gut, into the small intestine. So we can actually say something better than just digestive tract. We can say small intestine. Intestine. From gallbladder. These are things we already know. Then these substances can end up in your feces because from your small intestine, you're a straight shot through to your large intestine and then out through the rectum. And they're carried away by other indigestible materials such as fiber. Your liver also destroys some harmful and foreign substances, which also will end up into the gallbladder and also be expressed through the gallbladder into the small intestine. Of course, the liver has its own limits. It can't remove everything. Over time, toxins such as alcohol can actually damage the liver. This is a note that we don't have in this package, but I thought I would bring it up. This is what can happen to a liver if it is exposed to very excessive drug and alcohol use. This is scar tissue that forms on the lung. This is the point of no return at this point with this liver. Your liver can take a lot of damage. It can heal itself, but not if you get to the point of cirrhosis, which is the formation of scar tissue due to prolonged excessive alcohol or drug use. So, take it easy out there. Your liver can do a lot, but it can't do everything. Okay. So next we have egestion. This is the elimination of solid wastes. So for example, we take amino acids and we might break them down, and that for energy, but there's a lot of nitrogen in an amino acid. That's actually the chemistry term there, amino. Amino is refers to the presence of nitrogen in a particular form. And so the amino acids get broken down, and the nitrogen that's left over gets turned into ammonia. This is the same type of ammonia you have in your cleaning supplies. Perhaps you might have ammonium hydroxide for cleaning. And this is the same type of ammonia, it's, chemically at least. And so that ammonia is not particularly useful. It's a little bit difficult to work with. So the liver then converts the ammonia into another form called urea, and urea is much less toxic than ammonia. If you think about ammonia as the cleaning fluid, it's a cleaner. It's obviously very, very strong and a dangerous chemical that can be used to clean up oils and debris in your kitchen or your bathroom. So you don't really want ammonia in your body. It's quite poisonous to the body. So instead, the liver reduces the toxicity by changing it into urea, which is similar but different. Fish, on the other hand, they don't have this adaptation. Fish don't bother with this step. Fish are smaller. They're also very closely connected to the water. So fish will actually just release the ammonia right into the water. And birds don't even make urea. They make uric acid. And their body's digestive system is much shorter as well. So that all comes out as a single compound. Birds don't create separate urine and feces. It comes out as one compound, which is that white stuff that lands on your head during your wedding or something, or in all those hilarious YouTube videos. Okay. So we can see here that these are some of the ways that ammonia gets used in the body. A little bit of ammonia is excreted in the urine as a buffer in the kidney. It's also used for the synthesis of some of your amino acids. So your body does produce its own amino acids for the most part, and ammonia is used in some of that synthesis. But it's also mostly sent to the urea, or mostly converted into urea and used there. So it's about 80 to 100 micrograms per deciliter. I don't know what that means. I don't know what sort of reference point that can give you. But excess ammonia is certainly toxic to the central nervous system. CNS is the central nervous system. Certainly, if you're working with ammonia, you should definitely be using a mask. It can quickly cause you to pass out because it fumes quite badly. CNS, central nervous system. I don't think you have one of those. That little arrow diagram on there, do you? No. Feel free. Oh, you do have it. You have it over there. Okay, great. So here are the 4 organs and the things that they can move around. We have the kidneys. That's where your nitrogenous waste nitrogenous waste from your protein metabolism, so your amino acid breakdown. So that's nitrogenous. This means nitrogen-based, right? You can see the word nitrogen in there. So this is your urea, also your ammonia. We can put our NH3 here, ammonia. You have your lungs, which expel your carbon dioxide and a little bit of water. Your intestines, which are mostly the residues from digestion. So mostly a lot of cellulose. That's your fiber, right? Cellulose is another word for fiber. And other metabolic waste, such as bile pigments. So that includes the bilirubin. Bilirubin, which we just talked about. Nice if I can spell that. Okay. Bilirubin. That's not it. And then your skin, which releases minerals, mineral salts, and water, and some other minor wastes. Did I miss anything there? Heat. If you consider heat a waste as well. Let's put a little bracket. Heat. In a way, from a chemical perspective, heat could be considered a byproduct and a waste product that needs to be removed. If your body didn't remove its heat, then we would overheat, and there would be cell damage. Certainly, anybody who's experienced a burn knows that your body can't handle that much heat. So, your body does have to move heat and remove it, and certainly the skin is one of the main ways that we do that. So we can see another diagram on the next page here of a little sort of summary of the 4 organs that we're talking about here. So we have the skin, where we can even get some excess urea and water and some salts in our sweat. We have our lungs, where our carbon dioxide and excess water can be expelled. You have your liver, where your bile pigments can be sent to the feces via the intestines. So really anything the liver puts out is also going out into the intestine. And then you also have your kidneys, where any excess urea, or most of your urea, your excess water, and your excess salts will be sent out. I think I want take a break from me talking all the time. Let's see if we can pull up something else.